Another month of reading down, another reading wrap-up video. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. Hi, my name is Liz, and in today's video we are going to be doing my September reading wrap-up. It is so crazy to me that it's already October, or it's about to be. I'm actually filming this a few days before the start of October, mainly because I know the book I'm currently reading will not be done by the end of this month. It'll definitely be finished in October. I figured I might as well just share my thoughts on the books that I read this month because they're still fresh in my brain. If you are curious about why the book I'm currently reading will not be done by the end of this month, it is because I am reading one of the most hyped up books right now. I didn't even know this book existed until a week ago. I mean, I knew it existed, but also it just wasn't on my radar. But I saw so much hype for it. It was like all of my social media was about this book. I knew as soon as I finished the book I was on when this book came out, I needed to read this because I have to be a part of the conversation. That's one of my flaws, is no matter what book it is, if it's hyped, I have to read it. I'm a follower, clearly. But this book, I will say, I think it deserves the hype it is getting, personally. I am currently reading Alchemized by Sen-Lin Yu. It is over 1,000 pages. It might not look like it. That's because it has very, very thin pages, but this is over 1,000 pages and it feels like over 1,000 pages. It is so incredibly heavy. I wish I had a digital version of this because this is hurting my hand when I read it. I have to lay the book down on a flat surface in order to read it because of how heavy it is and how much it makes my hand/wrist hurt. But if you're wondering, yes, I am enjoying it. I am about 400 pages into the story right now and I am thoroughly enjoying my time while reading it. I started this yesterday. I'm cranking through this thing. I will not have this finished by the end of this month, and that is also why I'm filming this video slightly early. Not that you guys care. We're going to talk about the 10 books that I read this month. I definitely had some really great reads and I also had some not so great reads, so let's just talk about it. Let's get into today's video. I have to find my place in my reading journal so I can find all my readings and my stats. So this month I started it off with a book called Executioners 3 by Susan Dennard. This is her newest release. This is the author of the Luminary series, which I read the first book, really enjoyed, and I'm planning on reading and continuing the rest of the series this fall. When this book came out, I got an arc of it and it was so beautiful. It had the perfect fall cover. It had like the fall leaves. It had the crow on the cover. It just screamed fall. And so I knew to start off my fall reading, I wanted to read a book like this, just like something that wasn't on my radar, just to kind of slowly ease me into all my fall reads that I had picked out. And I have to say, it definitely did its job. It's set in the 90s, which I didn't realize until I started the book. I was like probably over 100 pages in, and then I realized it was set in the 90s, which I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more if I had known that going in, because a lot of the references that they make clearly were set in that time period, so like it made sense with the time period in the story, but it like got a little bit too repetitive for me. Like they kept talking about NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, which I don't live under a rock. Like I know who those two bands were and I've listened to their music as well, but like the amount of times they referenced these bands, it just got very repetitive and it was hard for me to be invested in that. And so that definitely took me out of the story a little bit. So I feel like if I knew going in this was set in the 90s. Murphy just ate it. So I think that definitely changed and impacted my reading experience. You're following our main character who is, I want to say like a sophomore or a junior in high school. Her school and another like prep school in town are in this huge prank war. Like they've had this huge rivalry for decades. Our main character accidentally calls the cops on a party that this prep school is throwing out in the woods because she hears screaming and she thinks, let me call 911. Turns out they were having a party. The people at her school are now looking at her like she is the prank queen. They are obsessed with her and now want her to help them with all their pranks when it comes to their school and this prep school. Meanwhile, the prep school, the head of their prank committee, is now looking at her. He now has his sights set on her. Meanwhile, while all this prank stuff is happening, there's this curse that is happening that is placed on this town and on generations worth of people who live in this town. Our main character, she is kind of like a detective and she takes it upon herself to try to figure out what's going on. There's dead bodies that are being discovered in the woods, and she decides, as any teenager would do, to try to put a stop to it. It was dual POV, which I really enjoyed, and I really liked their connection they had to each other. It did feel like it was a very quick romance, the way it all came about, but also like when you're in high school, like it made sense. It made sense with a YA book that they had feelings for each other pretty quickly. But I just loved the atmosphere. I loved the atmosphere of this book, and I felt like I was in the story. It definitely felt like a great fall book, and I would recommend it for the fall. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Like I said, I think I would have enjoyed my time reading it more if I had known going in that it was set in the 90s, and I do wish that Backstreet Boys and NSYNC weren't constantly being referenced in this book. I don't know, it came across as more cringy, but I did enjoy just the creepiness and the atmospheric tension that was happening. The next book that I actually listened to as an audiobook is Island of Last Things. I was really, really excited about this book when I saw it, and I had really high hopes for it. However, it kind of let me down, unfortunately. So the story is set in the near future. There is this like poisonous fungus that is growing, and it only affects animals. Animals are slowly going extinct, and what this world has now come to is they have these zoos spread throughout the world for the animals, and so they'll try to capture animals if they can, if they're out in nature, bring them into these zoos to protect them and keep them in a controlled environment that's away from this fungus. It has now gotten so further along that now we are down to one final zoo. There's only one zoo left in the world that has all these animals, and it's set on Alcatraz. You're following our main character, who is a zookeeper on Alcatraz, and you're following her journey, and you're learning about these different animals and what it's like to be a zookeeper. And there's this new zookeeper who comes in, and she's kind of helping train her and gives her a tour around the zoo, and things start to slowly go wrong. It sounded very intriguing. My problem was it felt like there was nothing going on, like nothing was happening for a majority of the book. You could see where it was going. You knew the path that our main character was going to take and what was going to happen, but it was just so incredibly slow. It took so long to get there. Also, the ending was just a little bit of a letdown. Like, honestly, I felt like there was this huge buildup and then for nothing. I was very disappointed in the ending and how things were left off. It just did not make sense to me. Maybe if I was like a huge animal nerd, like if I wanted to be a vet and I loved animals, not that I don't love animals, I have 2 cats, but if I was just like obsessed with animals, maybe I would have enjoyed this book more. The next book I read was actually for a book club that I'm in, and that is I was about to say Divine Rivals, and that is Wild Preference by Rebecca Ross, the author of Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. I loved that duology so much. I ended up giving it 5 stars when I read it a couple of years ago, so I was really excited to read this book. This is actually a prequel to that duology, so it's set in the same world, but is following all the gods and goddesses that are talked about in that book. I really enjoyed it. I really liked getting put back into that world. Rebecca Ross has very magical, lyrical writing. It's very poetic. One of the things that I was most nervous about going in, knowing the main character was a goddess, was that gods are usually known for being very just aloof and very emotionless. Like, it feels like they don't really have a lot of compassion or emotion, very numb to feelings. And that kind of concerned me. I thought like I was going to go into this and be in the head of one of these goddesses, and I was not going to enjoy my time. However, I found the opposite. I actually really loved seeing that. I felt like I was in their headspace, and knowing that, you know, gods and goddesses live for thousands of years and life is very fickle to them. It was very interesting to read about and get that kind of perspective. But our main character, like I said, she's a goddess in this world. She is actually a herald of the gods. So she is a messenger, essentially. In this world, there are gods and goddesses who are skyward, and then there's the mortal realm, so like where humans live, and then there's the underlings. Well, she was born and raised as an underling. But as the herald of the gods, she is actually able to travel to all 3 worlds. Our story follows her, and she starts to dream about a human boy. His name is Vincent, and they start to have their own friendship. You know, they're meeting each other in their dreams, and a love starts to form. And I just really enjoyed it. It's a thicker book. It's definitely a longer story, but it felt like it had really great pacing. Like, I was never bored while I was reading. I felt like there was a lot of action happening throughout the entire story. I ended up giving this 4.25 stars. I love her writing, and I always will. Also, you do not have to read Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows before reading this book. It does have a few nods to that duology towards the end, but it is nothing that's going to take away from your reading experience. If you have read that duology, you'll see them and appreciate them a little bit more. But I think also it'd be cool to read this before reading Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows, because then you would know a lot of the history and backstory of the gods and goddesses and why there's this war happening. I think if you are a fan of Stephanie Garber's writing, you probably would enjoy Rebecca Ross as well. The next book I actually read for a reading vlog, where it was a fall vlog. I was just reading books that were on my fall TBR, and just I wanted to get into my fall reads, and that is The Monster and the Last Blood Match by K.A. Lind. I've never read a book by this author before until this one, and I have to say I liked her writing style. However, I did not like this book. I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. The story is set in a modern day world where humans and vampires coexist. Our main character, she lives in poverty with her 2 brothers in so in order to help get more money, she signs up for this program where she is a blood escort. So she'll live with a vampire and basically just be a blood bag for that vampire. But the vampire she gets matched with does not drink from her and won't for some reason. There's a lot of secrets and things you're trying to uncover. There's a little bit of world building, but not a lot. It's very basic. And I feel like once you get into the story, since it's set in modern day, it's very easy to understand. I was not confused while I was reading this. It definitely felt like a candy read. Like, I like to refer to some of my romance books as candy reads because I just don't have to think too hard. I can just start reading the book and I am in the world. I don't have to think too hard about like the world building. Like, I understand what's happening, and it's just like a fun brain break from like heavier fantasies that I read. And this one definitely felt like a candy fantasy read, which is interesting. I've never really had one of those before. Some of the reasons why it got a 2.5 are MMC calls her little one. One of my biggest pet peeves while reading is gross and cringy pet names. That definitely counted towards that. Some other reasons, it just felt like our main character. I didn't like our main character. I didn't like our MMC either. Just didn't like their personalities. I did not root for them. I didn't really care about them. He was very moody and just like would not talk to her, and she was constantly trying to put herself in danger, which was really annoying as well. I don't know, it just felt like there wasn't a lot happening besides her living with him. I will say I am planning on reading other books by this author. She wrote The Wren and the Holly Library, and I am planning on reading that because I did like her writing. It was very easy to read and very bingeable, but yeah, this book was just not for me, unfortunately. And in that same reading vlog, I then read Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. This is set in like the 1970s, 1980s, I believe, but it's set in the time when girls, if they were unwed and got pregnant, they were sent to these homes where they would spend the rest of their pregnancy and then give birth. Baby would then be taken away, adopted, and then they could go back home, and this was like a secret. I really enjoyed this story. I really enjoyed this world we were in. It's technically horror, which I did not expect until like a good chunk of the book in, when there were some gruesome scenes, and then it made more sense. But for majority of this book, it just felt more like historical fiction because it is very realistic. Like there's a lot of truth in this world that we're in and these characters. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I enjoyed my time while reading it. I will say it's a thicker book as well. I wasn't necessarily bored. I still enjoyed the journey that we were on, but it definitely did not pick up the pace until like 150 pages in. There's a lot of unlikable characters in this book as well, so if that's gonna bother you, probably don't read it. But it just felt very human. It felt very real and human. The librarian ends up giving our main character a book of magic on how to become a witch. This book is basically about our main character and other girls in this house just trying to take their power back, which I found it was very powerful. It was a very moving and powerful story. There's lots of ways of getting pregnant, and sometimes it's not by choice. And so I liked that Grady Hendrix highlighted that, so that way we were able to see all different forms of girls and all different types of stories of these girls in this time period. And the next 4 books that I read are all part of a series, and that is the Natural series. So there's 4 books total in this series. The first one I read for that same reading vlog, and I really enjoyed it, and then I knew I had to read the rest of them. Think Criminal Minds, but with teenagers. Our main character, Cassie, she is really good at profiling people. She can read people really well and understand psychologically what they're thinking, why they do what they do. And she gets recruited by the FBI to be a part of this team of other teenagers. They're all called naturals because they all have natural abilities, such as like, being really good with computers, being really good with patterns, really good at reading people, really good at detecting lies. She gets added to this team, and they are tasked with hunting down serial killers. I had such a fun time reading this book. It was such a breath of fresh air. Like, it was just fun. It was the fun I needed, especially after reading Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, because that was definitely a heavier read. But the series really just brought a smile to my face. I really enjoyed my time reading it. This first book was actually my least favorite out of the entire series, and it just kept getting better and better. I ended up giving this one 4.25 stars. The rest of them I gave 4.5 stars. What I enjoyed about the series is every single book focuses on a different team member. You always have Cassie as your main character, but then you also get stories and like serial killers that are more personal towards other team members, and so you get a lot more of like their history, their background, and you get to understand this team and this like found family that they've created, because these are all teenagers that have nowhere else to go. Like, they do not have a family that cares for them or that they can go back to, so they kind of create their own family, which I really enjoyed. And also in between chapters you get a POV of you, and you, hello, this UPOV is whatever serial killer that they are hunting down in this book. And it was really cool seeing those chapters because it was just very creepy and you get to be put into their brain and why they're doing what they're doing. This is also the author of the Inheritance Games trilogy. So if you enjoyed that series, you definitely would enjoy this one. I actually enjoyed this one more. And the final book that I read this month was A Dance of Lies by Brittany Arena. I love this cover so much. This is one of my all-time favorite fantasy covers. That's not a special edition. Our main character, she is a dancer, and she's a very talented dancer at that. Our story starts off and our main character is in these dungeons and she was framed for murder. She gets brought out and her king then tells her, in order for you to earn your freedom and be exonerated, you are going to be a spy at this big gathering where she'll be a dancer. She'll be one of the performers and she'll be able to listen in and perform specific tasks for her king to further whatever agenda he has. Our main character, she's very weak from being in these dungeons. She's been in there for like 2 years at this point. A lot of her muscles have atrophied. She gets tired very easily, and yet she's being forced to ride out the pain and dance and perform. I really enjoyed it. I thought our main character was very strong, not physically, but just mentally, and I loved her determination to earn her freedom. I also really loved our MMC in this book. He was just not what I expected. I think a lot of people probably wouldn't expect him to be the MMC until like halfway through the book. But I loved the journey they were on. This is book 1. There's going to be a second book at least. I don't know how big this series will be. It was very simple world building. It didn't feel too complex, but at the same time, it gave me just enough. I also just really liked the characters that we were reading about. I ended up giving this 4 stars, and I definitely will be reading the next book when it eventually comes out. And those are all the books that I read in the month of September. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed getting a little insight into the start of my fall reading journey. I am really enjoying the book I'm currently reading, and I'm excited to, after I finish that, get into more of my fall TBR, because so far this past month, I read only 2 books in my fall TBR, which I thought I was going to read a lot more, but I got sidetracked by other things, but by other great books. So I have to say, I'm not complaining because I really enjoyed the books for the most part that I read this past month. I'm just like in all the cozy feels at this point. I'm really loving being in the fall season. Some exciting news. This whole corner will be changing sometime soon. May or may not have some new bookshelves are on their way, but that will be a whole separate video, and I'm really excited to update this space as well. Not that I don't love this corner. I love this corner with my books. It's just I am out of space. Like, I don't have room for my books. So some things have to be sacrificed. Some things have to be tweaked. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you're enjoying your fall season and your fall reading. If you are, please comment down below. Tell me what books you're reading and let me know what books I need to add to my TBR, because I am always open to adding more books to my TBR. And that's part of the reason why I'm getting new bookshelves. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. And I will see you guys in my next video. Happy reading. Bye.